Happy Wednesday to everyone and welcome. Um, we will shortly get kicked off in our interview preparation module of the professional development series. But as usual, want to take care of a few quick housekeeping issues. And before you all get through it, I know that I still need to get back in touch with you on feedback on resumes as well as LinkedIn profiles. So if you have not gotten that information back, it's not that you've missed anything. I have just been pulled into a couple unexpected projects and scenarios, but I will certainly get that information to everyone by close of business on Friday. So if there is anything pressing, upcoming, positions that you want to apply for, really need some feedback, then let me know. I'll prioritize that. And I know that several of you have reached out to have 15 to 30 minutes to kind of chat around company target list, career assessment, um, and what I am going to do. He does not know this yet, but Chinedu, you're on, correct? I'm pretty sure he is, but he's probably muted. I'm going to have Chinedu respond back to everybody. And that time will likely be scheduled Monday or Tuesday of next week. So obviously it won't interfere with anybody's class schedule or what have you. And if need be, we can certainly take it um, as a Skype or virtually. But I have not forgotten, and we'll make sure that we get that one-on-one time to ensure that everybody's on track with the course and sort of has their customized career target plan moving forward. So outside of those scenarios, before we get started, are there any questions, concerns, criticisms on any of our previous modules, or anything I haven't covered moving forward?
There is
There
something
is
that
something
said
that
that
said
his
that his
orientation
orientation
online.
online.
I did. Thank you, Barat. And so I want to make sure, Bobby, you're referring to orientation, new student orientation for uh, this Saturday, correct? Got it. So yes, we will have a live link to the online session that will be emailed out likely tomorrow, the latest on Friday morning. We are certainly conducting everything online for the students who are in our MBA online and MS in Project Management online programs. So if you are live, one of our live programs, our preference is definitely for you to be live at the session. If you are, again, online, you're welcome to come and participate. We actually will have food there that tends to attract a crowd. But you're not required to be there live if you are in the online program, yet you are required to participate online if you are in one of the online programs. So to summarize, if you're in an online program, you have an option of coming to the live session or participating virtually. If you're in the face-to-face program, we strongly prefer that you participate live. Now, if there's some unforeseen circumstances or some things happening, just reach out either to myself or to Mr. Wells one-on-one, and we can take those scenarios proactively stated by students on a one-on-one basis. Can't register for classes. It says, okay. So I don't want to take up our time for professional development on that, we'll certainly spend quite a bit of time on the class registration scenarios on Saturday. But essentially, what you're going to need is an override, and if you send the course name number as well as your name number, student ID, and the CRN number for the class over to Ms. Tereshan via email, she'll get the approval over to you for you to be able to register.
So in short, the email that the Dean of Graduate Studies sent, Mr. Jermaine Smith, I believe? No, that's not the Dean. But an email came from Mr. Jermaine Smith saying that this year we're going to conduct orientation online. That's just, I mean, he had a bunch of departments and everything else, but the MBA program, we are still required to come to campus.
Correct. Now, the School of Graduate Studies has a separate online, a separate orientation from us. So I would strongly suggest participating in theirs as well. Yet ours is mandatory, as stated in documentation that's been sent out and email.
That was just a bit confusing. Okay, clear now.
No, duly noted. Duly noted. Until you mentioned that, Bharat, I was unaware of the communication that had come out of School of Graduate Studies.
Oh, okay. I think that's what Ms. Bobby Addison was referring to.
Okay.
Because orientation online. I don't know if she's a class MBA or online.
Right. She's one of your classmates. So both of you all are in essence, pre the program until Monday. So she got the same communication you did, logically speaking.
And regarding parking permits and stuff like that, because I mean, I don't live on campus and I don't know who else is, and we're considered commuters. I did the orientation from the Graduate School Studies, and parking is a section in there, and they're closed on Saturday and Sunday. And Monday they close by 4:30, and the classes we're taking are at 6.
Correct.
And you can't park in the lot without a parking permit.
So you're astutely pointed out. What I would suggest that you do, drop me a separate line on this, and then I'll get you directly to someone virtually who will be able to to process at least getting you set up. So if you happen to, in the first few days of classes, receive a ticket, then you'll at least have some documentation that prior to that time you were authorized and paid to be able to park on campus.
No, they
I see what they tow. Okay, all right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of deciphering what she's saying. Let's do this. Again, I want to stick to the interview prep for now, and assuming that both of you all will be at orientation, we'll certainly be able to address this there, because I'm sure your other classmates will have those questions as well. To park on Saturday, no, you will not. They know that the orientation is taking place, and as long as you're parking in the QN lot, which is directly across from the building, you'll be fine.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Perfect. So, with that stated, let's discuss interview preparation. Many of you have, all of you, I would presume, have been on a interview of some sort, whether that be an interview into admission to school, interview for position, career, and the keys to a successful interview, everyone sort of assumes, but it is really about, as slide 2 indicates, the preparation, your appearance, your body language, your gestures. But some of the things that people don't know, or that they aren't intuitive in thinking through, are things like your elevator pitch. How do you describe yourself, and how do you quickly and succinctly share the value that you bring, the interest that you have, and the background and education that you've accumulated? And how do you make sure that that is germane to the role, company, and position that you are interviewing for. And in our cases, we'll be talking about interviewing for the career perspective. And how do you respond to the questions? I think a lot of people get extremely nervous walking into interviews, and we'll talk about this in a few slides, because they think that they're walking into this mystical place and they have no idea what they may be asked or how to prepare for it, and that has a very direct correlation to your confidence level. And I've been on both sides of the desk in this scenario several times, and one of the things that interviewers will tell you, hiring managers will tell you about the people that make it to the short list and ultimately get the position is their confidence level. If you can't sell yourself and if you're not confident in you, then why should I be? So, as I have a bullet around response to questions, a lot of that is directly linked to, do you feel prepared in walking into that interview? And if you feel prepared walking through that interview and having a command of your background and role and position, you're going to come across a lot more confident in that interview, thus demonstrating your ability to come in and add value in that position. So it is very important to understand the questions that you're being asked and how to respond to them. And we'll be spending a lot of time on that today. Another thing that individuals don't understand is the quality of the questions that you ask directly relate to how much research you've done ahead of time. And if you've done the research ahead of time, that shows your engagement, how much you really want the position. And people want to work with those that are interested, passionate about where they're working in that industry and that space. If you stop and think about it, you spend more time at work than you do with most of your family and loved ones. So you want to like the people that you're around, and if you all have professional interest in line, you're much more likely to like that person and have a thriving culture within that organization. So I'd like to talk about that this early in the presentation, just so all of you all as learners keenly understand why all of these points are needed to make or conduct a successful interview, but really what you're conveying and why you're going through each of these stages. It's about understanding kind of the hidden rules and the perception of that interviewer on the other side of the desk. And then lastly, from an agenda perspective, we'll talk through sort of next steps and follow-ups once the interview is done, because there are individuals that pay very close attention to your follow-up, the thank you notes, and are you sending one blanket note to several different individuals? Are you customizing those notes? Again, all signals of you and your brand. And what's very important that I think all of you intelligent learners can connect the dots and assume, but I want to make sure I articulate it, and that is, you're being viewed in an interview, whether that's 30 minutes, whether that's an hour, whether that's a panel interview, a phone interview, a video interview, but they're looking for signs that will help them project what your behavior and strengths are going to be in the future. So you have to understand that you're under a microscope during that time frame. So all these things we're talking about are to help you understand, again, how to represent yourself and the school as best you possibly can, and understand it's really about your brand. So let's peel the onion back a little bit, unless there are any thoughts or questions on the second slide. Okay. So peeling the onion back, preparation. The way to look at preparation is truly understanding what are all of the different types of interviews. And of course, there's the phone screen. And in essence, in the phone screen, it usually happens very early on in the process. And what that's usually with a with a HR recruiter. or someone very early in the screening process, and they're probably talking to anywhere from 7 to maybe 20 people to figure out who ranks the highest to actually be able to get FaceTime or at least conversational time with the hiring manager or the interviewing committee. So you want to when on the phone, having a phone screen, you want to be in a location where you've got good cell coverage, and we actually strongly recommend to be on a landline if possible when you're conducting your phone screen. There's nothing worse than dropped calls and background noise and distraction. You never want to do something like a phone screen interview while driving. I remember having an experience while I was a hiring manager, and someone was actually a passenger in the car and was going through the phone screen with me, and at the same time trying to give one of their friends directions to where they were going. Needless to say, even though that candidate had a strong background, they did not make it past me in that process, because to me that didn't show strong planning as far as time management, nor did that demonstrate good judgment. So again, when I say everything that you're doing is being viewed and up through this process, truly all of your actions are being looked at to determine, are you the right fit culturally, professionally, skills wise, background, and do you fit in the organization. Also, you certainly want to find a quiet place. If you're at home and you have pets, you want to make sure you're a place where that will not be a distraction. You also want to make sure that you focus on the questions that are asked. I've got a slide later on, and we'll be talking about what interviewers' thoughts are on potential mistakes that are made in the interview process or things that are used to weed individuals out. But a lot of times it's not clearly understanding the question or not clearly answering the question. You want to make sure, even if you have to take the time to pause, ask the interviewer to repeat the question. Maybe you heard the question clearly, but you just want to take a few moments to think through your answer, buy yourself a little bit of time. And it's okay to take a few moments and say, well, that's an interesting question. Let me think through that. You don't want to take a lot of time as you're thinking through it, but that's appropriate if you need to use that as a lifeline. And there's also the option of asking for clarification. If you truly don't understand the question, or you think you may not clearly understand the question, it's okay to respond with, I believe you're asking me, and then share what it is you think that they're asking you. And it's much better to go down that route than to think that you understand it and not be sure, because you're also demonstrating by asking that question that you're the type of employee that will dot his or her I's and cross their T's. You won't just make assumptions around what you think the task is or the project. You will make sure, and you're confident enough to ask those questions and to get that clarity. Of course, one-on-one interviews are the most common, and typically they happen after some sort of screening process. Really, what these are about is how you fit in. They want to get an understanding of not only your skills. If you didn't demonstrate on your resume the skills to be able to do the job, you would not make it to the interview. So a lot of this is more about how you fit in culturally, how you fit in with the team, and will you be able to, who will add the most value to the organization, and again, how you'll support their work. I'm very blunt at this point within the professional development series, because I think a lot of individuals going into interviews make it about them. They make it about my skills, my background, and oh, they see that I went to the Graves School of Business and so on and so forth. That's wonderful, that's great. But going into the interview, it is absolutely about that organization, that team, and that job. So you all, as the interviewer, need to understand that the first thing that needs to happen is you being able to show your knowledge of what they need, and not only that, but how you, in a humble way, can come in, add value, and solve their problems. Um, is that clear? Hello?
Yes.
Perfect.
We can hear you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Butcher.
Wonderful. Sometimes now a lot of times I've talked with learners that get nervous around the group and panel interviews, and I tend to ask this very simple question. What's the difference? And I'll say you're probably going to get 5 questions or so in an interview. So if you're sitting there with in a panel with 5 people, you're probably going to get 1 question from each person. And the way that a lot of these interviews are designed is the interview panels, someone will have a specific either vested interest in who gets hired, or someone is a team expert in a certain area, so that person comes in to specifically focus on that. For example, uh, let's see, will it be? I missed that question, Chineda. If you could capture it and bring it up in a second, I just want to make this point.
Yeah, she said, will it be fine if I can see how my skills can impact the organization?
Will it be fine if she can see how her
If I,
skills?
if she can see how her skills can impact the organization.
Well, Jamie, that's what the whole interview was about. So you want to go in prepared, knowing that, and we'll get into this in a few more slides. But they will ask you certain questions, and it's your job to weave into your responses exactly what you just asked. So you don't want to walk in the beginning of the interview, kind of bombard them with, "Yep, I can do administrative. I am great at, this specific IT systems." And what you want to do is you want to walk in, you want to build rapport with them, you want to kind of let them lead the interview in the vast majority of cases, and they'll begin to ask you about, tell me a time when you led a project, or tell me a time when things didn't get all things on within a team setting didn't get started off well, and how did you turn them around? So what you've got to do is, in answering those questions and explaining those specific situations, you share how you used those skills. Does that clarify? Excellent. The point that I was making back to the group panel interviews is that there's usually, again, an expert who's really looking for something specific. So take, for example, you are interviewing at a hedge fund. Someone's probably going to be geared more towards client interaction. And does this person have the soft people skills to be able to interact well with our clients or potential acquisitions? And someone else is going to probably be in depth around the technical skills. The person that has all the numbers right there in their head, and their questions are going to be much more technical, making sure you understand the equations and valuations of being able to assess opportunities. Someone else may be simply looking for leadership skills, and does this person have the ability to come in and be promoted twice in the next 2 years, or whatever their certain scale, might be, or metric. But I want to make that point. So if there is anyone here, that gets nervous around the panel interviews, you really just have to peel the onion back and just think that that's just one person that's probably looking after one specific thing, as opposed to when you're in that one-on-one setting, you've got one person who's looking for multiple things. Your evaluation part is still one in the same. And one of the main things as you want to make sure with multiple interviewers that you're using their names every now and then, maybe every 3 or 4 times that you're referencing that specific person. You may throw their name in. It's a trick of the trade for two reasons. One, if you're using individuals' names, it sort of makes them feel good. Oh, so and so remembered my name. They are called by their name with their colleagues, so you are already in a humble way bringing in yourself to the team. You're kind of elevating yourself even as early as the interview, naming and claiming the role and position, and you're already getting them subliminally to be thinking about and looking at you as a team member. You certainly want to ask for their opinions, and if you'll know ahead of time who will be on that panel and what their title is. So based on their title, you should be able to get a good idea of why they're on the panel. Again, they're probably a stakeholder, someone that whoever's hired in that role is going to work closely with. They could potentially be, of course, the hiring manager, maybe the second level manager. Human resources would, of course, be involved. So you want to have a question that's tailored to at least one for each of those interviewers. So you may be asking HR something more around the overall company culture and the common traits of those that are successful within the organization. And you may want to talk with the hiring manager about what are the specific team needs? Where do you see the greatest opportunities are within the specific team? If you're talking with stakeholders, that may be someone in a totally different department. So you may want to ask a few more technical scenarios. How does your marketing group or how does your research and development group interact with this specific team, and where do you see the greatest opportunities are for greater synergies? You want to understand all of that to show again the way you're thinking. But as these conversations are taking place, you certainly want to get reference their names where you can, and you want to try to get their opinions and their insight and perspective. If you're really lucky, they'll share with you some of the big opportunities. And if you can get that type of information in a first round interview, then when you're coming into the second round interview, you almost have the clip notes or you have the cheat sheet. You know exactly where the pain points are. And that, Jamie, would be where you clearly understand your background and where you have worked in these areas and been successful. And those are the things that you drive in to your responses. Of course, everyone's heard the make eye contact with the panelist, and that goes back to the confidence point that I talked about before. You certainly, as you're talking, want to have everyone within that panel, you're making eye contact with them. You don't want just because, Sue to your left asked the question that as you're responding, you're only talking to Sue. You want to make sure you start and end with clear eye contact with Sue, but you want to engage everybody on the panel as you're talking and responding. So you should be making eye contact with someone as you're going through and responding with those questions. And the eye contact is important because, again, it shows confidence. It shows you believe in what you're saying. And I'll repeat myself again, if you can't sell yourself, then I certainly wouldn't see you as a fit or someone who has the confidence to come in and take on the task in driving the organization or the team that I'm working on. Lastly, we'll dig a little bit into to video interviewing, which is becoming more and more popular. I mean, we're sitting here right now on a 100% virtual class, so technology is definitely making its way into our worlds and careers. But you definitely want to do a equipment test early. Most video tools now will allow you to go in and do some quick testing to make sure that the audio and visual equipment links up with the right software pieces. But you also want to make sure that your backgrounds are correct, and that the cameras are lined up properly, and that you don't have a lot of distracting things in the background, and you're again presenting yourself in a strong light. Definitely you want to make sure that the wall behind you is essentially white, and you know not a lot of personal things jumping out to again cause distraction. This is a process where you and your background should be leading and being the differentiator. You don't want to be known as oh, that guy that had the such and such picture and big distraction there in the background. Just as the same as if we were talking dress for success, you don't want to be the guy that wore the pink shirt or the orange shirt. You want them to be focused on again you and your background. So jumping into appearance, it's a great fit. Business attire and less specified. I myself have interviewed at startups, and they will specifically tell you, business casual, dress the way that you want. If any of you are interested in financial services firms, they're not going to tell you, but you show up in the blue or gray suit, the white shirt, and the power tie, because that is the way that you dress within that industry. So it's very important to know and understand those nuances and dress appropriately, dress the part. Now, you don't want to overdress. You don't want to show up with bow tie and cufflinks, going into certain interview processes. Yet at the same time, you want to be keenly aware that there are separate rules for you and the interviewer. As I said, I've been on both sides of the desk, and there are times I walked in and maybe I had a jacket and a button-up shirt interviewing and felt fine, was perfectly comfortable, yet my expectation was those coming in to interview would have a suit and tie on, or have a jacket and blouse in the case of females. So I want to make sure that everyone clearly understands, if you go into an interview and you begin to see, oh, well, the hiring manager or someone on the interview panel and committee may not have a tie on, that doesn't mean take your tie off or be extremely relaxed, and nor does that mean that they're being disrespectful to you. But you definitely want to put your best foot forward and present yourself in that business attire. If you are confused, or if no one has specifically told you, it is certainly appropriate to whoever has scheduled the interview with you to ask, what is the dress code? How should you dress? So that is certainly a fair question in that event. And it's also about doing your research. We've spent a lot of time the last two modules talking about networking, and hopefully by the time you're going into the interview process, you know a few people there who can give you some insight on potentially who you'd be interviewing with and some of their hot buttons, but at least to be able to walk you through the interview process and sort of what appearance should be. But again, if you don't have that luxury, it's certainly a valid question to talk to the person about who is scheduling your interview. Any questions there? So gestures. Arriving 5 to 10 minutes early is the appropriate scenario. Again, everything that you're doing is being monitored. So you don't want to be the person that shows up 1 minute before or right on time. That could send a signal to a hiring manager that, oh, this is the individual that when we're working on a project and I need their piece, they're going to bring it to me right on time. I want the person that's going to bring things early. To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late, and to be late is unacceptable. That is something that was prevalently taught to me as I was going through similar career development and training sessions. So I'm sure I'm not telling you all many things that you don't know, but I'm reiterating and reminding you and making sure that you all understand some of these nuances. Now, again, on the flip side, you don't want to show up 30 minutes early either, because individuals are extremely busy. Someone may have a conference call, 30 minutes going right up to your interview time, and if you arrive early, there is a chance that you could create anxiety with the person that you're interviewing. And the last thing that you want is for the person that you're interviewing with to feel like, oh, okay, now I've got to be mindful of them out and waiting in the lobby and so on and so forth while I'm trying to focus on, getting through this call in time. So 5 to 10 minutes is the sweet spot. And again, these are gestures. You certainly want to be nice and jovial to everyone. There have been so many times, again, while I've been on interview panels, where we've pulled in the receptionist or pulled in the office manager or the admin to get an idea of how was that individual when they were sitting in the lobby and waiting. Did they attempt to talk with you? Did they seem nervous and agitated? Did they seem disconnected? Especially when it came down to one or two, the final two candidates, and they were pretty lock, stop, and even. So I would definitely encourage you, don't get too caught up on title and where people are. You'll find in many organizations, the administrative support are some of the most influential people there because they're the gatekeepers. They can let you in or not. Exactly. Those are definitely things that you should be mindful of. Pamela was sharing. Yeah, I believe it was Southwest. They would, a part of their evaluation process was to see how you treat the person that let you in the door. The other thing that's extremely important, and I'll bring this up because there are international students on the call, and I don't want to pick on international students, but I'll just state that during my tenure here, I've known that international students haven't been as familiar with this specific nuance. When you're giving someone a handshake and you're shaking their hand, this is for men and for women, and whether you're shaking a man or a woman's hand, you want to make strong eye contact, look them in the eye, but you want to give them a firm handshake. There's nothing worse than kind of the weaker, meek handshake, and because that actually says something about you. It may put you, in some people's opinion, in a docile category, or that you're not strong. And the vast majority of individuals want that strong, confident person that's going to be politely aggressive in getting the work done that needs to be done and exceeding expectations. So I want to make sure that you're mindful when giving anyone a handshake, and this is everyone, all the learners on the call. Again, firm handshake, eye contact, and tone of voice is extremely important as well. You want to make sure that you're not being monotone and talking in a fashion like this the whole time. If you stop and think about it, most of the time when you're interviewing several different people, and some individuals, I mean, I've blocked off entire days, I've blocked off half days, I've blocked off 2 whole days. And you got to think that a lot of times individuals are responding in the same way. And you want to find a positive way to stand out. If you want to find a way to, to engage and to keep the interviewer's attention. A lot of times this can come down to finding a connection and linking with a person to actually have them root for you. At the end of the day, that's really what you want. So you've got to come in and be your best cheerleader. And I've never seen a cheerleader kind of have a monotone, down voice like so. So
I would like to add, Mr. Fletcher, about this being
please.
nice to everyone. there was an interesting read where somebody was talking about karma and stuff like that, and
Okay.
basically the guy he took somebody else's parking spot, he flipped him, he goes in, and the person who was interviewing is the guy who got flipped.
Oh, oh yeah.
Talk
I
about cheating
mean,
nicely.
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you never know. I mean, that the 5 to 10 minute rule, especially if I haven't known where I'm going, I'll give myself an extra 20 to 30 minutes as I'm driving, especially in DC Baltimore areas. You never know when traffic might rear its ugly head. So a lot of times I'd sit in the parking lot waiting till the 5 to 10 minutes before. But you never know who you're going to see and what's happening. So sometimes I wouldn't even park very close at that juncture, park a little further away because I wouldn't want to seem like the weird stalker. As some of the interviewers, maybe just coming in and showing up and that sort of thing. But from the time that you're in that area and around the premises, to your point, Bharat, you never know who you're seeing and when you're going to see them again. So don't burn bridges. Um, Another thing is moving forward beyond tone of voice, and thanks for adding that. That's a great story, and I like to have those live lessons that we've all experienced, to share with each other. So if there's others, team, feel free to jump in and share those.
Well,
Um,
since you mentioned story, real brief, 5 seconds. When I got interviewed for the position I'm in right now,
okay.
my boss didn't sit around and ask my background. He basically put me in front of a computer and said, "Design this." I
Ah.
was the interview.
Okay.
Like he
Okay.
grilled me for 3.5 hours, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say. That he be prepared to do the job you're applying for if need be. Roll up your sleeves and get into it. And that's what he did. He's like, "Sit here. This is what I'm designing right now. This is what I'm working on. Let me see what you got."
Okay. Essentially, what Barat said was that his interview for the position that he currently has was what we call a technical interview. Essentially, his hiring manager sat him in front of a computer, handed him, um, a sheet of paper, and said, "Here, design this." Now, Barat's background is engineering. So that's a lot more prevalent in IT and engineering type of roles. Now, I'm sure maybe in earlier interviews it was more of a behavioral style, concept, and that sounds like that was probably second or a third round type of interview. And earlier, as I mentioned in panels, there's always an expert. And I talked about, and I use the example of finance, the person that knows and understands the equations back and forward and knows the numbers. It would not surprise me if you're going into an interview, on Wall Street, that they ask you, they're not going to ask you, do you know what a derivative is? They're going to give you a scenario and expect you to understand how to work that derivative, or they're going to expect you to know internal rate of return equation off the top of your head. So that's why it's very important that again, the fields, the companies, and where you're going. I mean, potentially going into an advertising interview, they may ask, take these two or three scenarios and pitch me on an ad. I've asked in sales interviews, here's a pen, sell me this pen, to see if they have, that knack and ability. So, what we're talking about today is vastly geared towards behavioral style interviews. But you're absolutely right that, there are case-based interviews for those of you all that are interested in going into management consulting. And certainly let's have some one-offs. I know a few students who are interested in that, and I think that kind of practicing those cases together could certainly benefit all of you all as those particular interviews come up. Companies like Accenture, as well as Gallup, come and recruit here, and they have those types of interviews, and then certainly the technical interviews that Bharat spoke about. Now, if we take a look at smell and smile. Those are very important. And even with smile, do it on the phone. You'd be very surprised about how people can hear a smile. And again, as I talked about earlier, a lot of times that HR individual who's screening people has talked to 20 people that day, and they don't, want that monotone. They want the person that's going to be respectful to them, that's going to, have some empathy with them, and try to make the time as enjoyable and engaging as possible. That person who's doing the interviews is asking the same questions all day long. And the person that they're going to be rooting for is the person, of course, that has the skills and the ability. But once you get through that layer, it's going to be the person that was the most engaging to them, the person that they see as the best fit, for the culture. If you stop and think about it, as a hiring manager and individual that put together interview teams and committees, we used to always talk about either the 5-hour tarmac rule or the 3-hour window shield rule. If you were stuck on a tarmac, about to take off on a plane, could you sit next to this person for 5 hours without wanting to, slit your wrist, kind of thing? Or could you, take a long road trip and spend 3 hours behind a windshield with this person without, running out of things to talk about, or having strange, awkward pauses? So think about that. Now, specifically smell. You do not want to have overpowering cologne, perfume at all. You don't want those things to arrive in the room before you, or remnants be there afterwards. You do not want at all to be in that case or scenario. If you absolutely have to use something, use very little. And again, but you also want to make sure, you showered that day too. Goes without saying, but, you want to make sure, again, that it is your background, your work that is coming across, and there's no other distraction that has you standing out beyond, again, the value that you bring to that organization. I'm guilty of this, using hands a lot when talking. That is distracting and something that you should really be cautious of in an interview setting. I'm not saying that you should never do it. If you really want to emphasize a point, especially if you're maybe standing up doing some type of presentation, obviously you'll use them. But a lot of times you don't want to be overly using them, or if you are using your gesturing with your hands, you don't want to make fast, quick, startling motions. You want them to be smooth, calming motions. You always want to make sure that you bring 1 to 2 extra copies of your resume, whether you're intending to meet one person, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. It happens all the time where someone says, "Oh, we're interviewing with such and such. Pop on in, to the interview." And again, you'll be able to show your level of preparedness. If someone unexpectedly pops in, you open your portfolio book and you just hand them one of the extra copies of your resume. It's also a good idea to have an extra copy of your resume for you. Now, you should know your resume. After all, these are your accomplishments and your experience that should be, programmed in your head, just like your address and the spelling of your name. But having a copy maybe just before you go into the interview, making sure that you've articulated certain points in a particular fashion is smart, because you're going to be walking into that interview and they're going to be asking you about some of those experiences, and you want to make sure that everything's in line, especially when we're talking about numbers and specific accomplishments in certain roles. And lastly, I talked about, having a portfolio and an extra pen. I talked with grad assistants recently about this. As you can imagine, especially this time of year, the office is buzzing. New students are coming in. We're still trying to finalize different things, believe it or not, with some incoming students. So a lot of volume, lots of emails, and I may go past the grad assistant and say, "Hey, where are we on such and such? And oh, by the way, I need you to do these 2-3 things for me." Now, our normal process of going into Trello or, what have you, and programming is sometimes that gets moved to, to the side when we've got to be extra quick. And I'll tell them, do you remember what I asked you to do? Oh, it kind of slipped my mind. So it's always make sure you have something to write with as you are going into the interview scenario. You want to take notes on the things that the interviewer is talking to you about. And it's always appropriate to ask, excuse me, do you mind if I take a few notes? They're going to talk to you about their backgrounds. They're going to talk to you about their roles and how their roles fit in to the position you're interviewing for. They're going to talk about, challenges with the team, what's happening in the industry, the expectations that they have. You, especially early on in first and second round interviews, want to capture as much of that as you can. Again, they're giving you the cheat sheet so you know what to pull out of your background to stand out and add value when you're invited to the next round of interviews. So that is very key, and a nuance that I think a lot of individuals aren't taking full advantage of currently. Any questions there? And I know we have a lot to catch up on with limited time, but I definitely want to get through a few of these highlighted points. And I talked about the crucial interview tips and common nonverbal mistakes. This may be a little bit of an eyesore. I'll make sure. Or actually, Sinead, if you could remind me to make sure we post this and get this video out, for the class. But 67% of individuals aren't necessarily making the eye contact. 47% of individuals don't have knowledge of the company. So you may know what a project manager is, but if you're going to XYZ Corporation as a project manager, you still need to understand that company, where they fit into the industry, and what's taking place. There's also not smiling, 38% not smiling, 33% it looks like that have bad posture. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're coming across professional and confident. Towards the bottom, top 10 most common interview mistakes. Number one, overly explaining why you're no longer at your previous position. Number two, talking about or demonstrating that you're not over why you're not at your previous role and position. Let's see also things that have an impact on first impressions. 70% talking about attire, and you don't want to wear the loud colors. You certainly want to keep it to the navy blues, the grays. Those are the traditional scenarios. And then statistics show first impressions are determined almost within the first few moments of when you're walking into the door. So first impressions are extremely important. And again, I apologize if this chart's a little bit of an eyesore, and I'll make sure we get it out to everyone where they can study it a little bit further. But we've talked through the vast majority of those key points. We mentioned earlier the elevator pitch, and this is an example of putting together an effective one. You want your elevator pitch to be concise, carefully planned, and well practiced. It's a marketing message of your professional background, and it's something that your mother, who's not working in the industry that you're working in, or maybe the younger sibling or 15-year-old niece and nephew should be able to clearly understand it and get it, and it should be no longer than 60 to 90 seconds. You may, and many individuals start this way. Tell me about yourself, or why should we hire you? These are setups for the elevator pitch question. What they're really asking you is, what's your elevator pitch? I remember making this mistake, getting a question of, tell me about yourself, and going all the way back to undergrad and going all the way through my career. 5 minutes later, I'm trying to figure out why I'm not getting a good response from this person. And I'll talk to a friend of mine later, with that organization. And, the comment was, all right, walk me through what was asked. How did this go? And then it clicked in my mind. Oh, this is a fast-paced organization. They don't want the person that's going to sit there and take 5 minutes to go through and explain all this. They want, high level, give me what I need to know, and then let's move on to the next thing. So again, that's where culture is important. But I want to make sure that everyone clearly understands the elements of the elevator pitch. So EES essentially is it. You want to definitely include your education. You definitely want your relevant job experiences to be a part of that pitch, and then the skill to show that you're comfortable within that role and position. Any questions there on elevator pitch?
Real life example. I just want to say that I was trying to work with a nonprofit, and when they asked me to tell me about myself, I rambled for 6 minutes, all the way,
Yeah.
like you said, from like my 10th grade. I'm like, and they're like, get to the point already, will you? So that makes perfect sense. And the other thing is, somewhere I read that, if you have an hour interview, the first 5 minutes, they have made the decision of whether they
Oh,
want to take you forward or not. And the rest of the 55 minutes, they're there to make sure that their opinion about you, whether to hire or not hire you, they're defending it based on the responses you're giving in the next 55 minutes.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. I mean, as many interviews as I've done when I've been on the interview side of the table, I can probably count. I can certainly count on one hand how many times the person, as we prepared and looked through resumes before the interview, where the way that we ranked them, or at least the person that we thought was going to get the position, ended up not getting the position. It's very rare. Um, but knowing these tools and understanding these things that we're going through today helps you be, if you happen to not be that person that they're seeing as the front runner coming in, it helps you position yourself to be that surprise dark horse, if you will. Now, this is a key part. I know that we're right at 7. If individuals need to fall off, I understand. I'm going to keep going through this because it is that important. This is a huge meat of what I want to make sure gets conveyed. We are recording this session. So again, if you do need to fall off, you will get a link to go in to the recording and listen and make this part up. But we've been talking a lot about responses to questions, and I really want to dig into an actual strategy called the STAR method. And STAR stands for situation, target, action, result. Both Bharat and I have been open and humbly shared experiences that we learned the hard way. And what happens is interviewees, will get nervous going through interviews, and certain individuals will get nervous and ramble. And the key is you want to stay confident and concise through the entire interview conversation and process. So the situation, target, action, result helps you stay concise because it shows you and helps you understand what is it that the interviewer needs to know, understand, and hear about those behavioral examples that you're giving through the interview. So what we're going to talk about here is not only the STAR, but we're going to talk about types of questions that fit under that behavioral method. Earlier, we talked through the difference between, case methods and technical interviews. There are resume-based interviews where, direct questions come out of review of your resume, but those are not as common as they once were. The behavioral interviews are actually becoming a lot more common. But the key is this methodology helps you stay concise. No matter what, even if it was a bad situation, You always want to remain positive and have a positive spin in your interviews. You never want to be the person that talks about, well, I demonstrated leadership because we were in a student study group and 2 of the 5 classmates weren't doing their work, and the rest of us stayed up late and made sure we got it done, and we got an A. Well, that really doesn't solve a scenario. You're making your classmates in your university look bad by airing that dirty laundry, if you will. So there's much better ways to demonstrate leadership, and I know that's an extreme example of not being positive, but you want to make sure that everything's positive, and here's why. If you're a hiring manager and you're about to bring someone onto your team and they're bad mouthing, colleagues or bosses or organizations, they could very well, because remember, the whole interview process is you're trying to use predictive behavior for the future. They could very well, at a certain juncture, be bad mouthing you and your organization and your colleagues. So no one wants to deal with that and have the bad press. So you always want to show professional maturity by staying positive. And then, typically speaking, the areas that you want to stay away from talking about are politics, religion, and parenting. Even if tempted, even if prompted, you want to stay far away from those topics in a professional setting as possible. But back to the STAR method, the situation. Situation is the time for you to open with a brief description of the situation in the success story. Okay, so that's where we want to kind of get into. In my role as assistant director at the Graves School of Business Master's Programs, we were tasked to drive enrollment, to drive the development of the professional development series. We were tasked to what have you. So it's really that simple. So what that does in one quick, simple sentence is it helps the interviewer understand what role and in what responsibility you had, and then it even gets somewhat into the target around what was the target or task that you had to take on. What were you trying to achieve? As you get into tasks, again, you want to explain, and highlight specific challenges or constraints, deadlines, costs, those type of issues. So maybe it's we needed to increase placement rate at the school and the program, and we had a limited budget to do so. Whatever. Now that should be, again, 1 to 2 bullets, very concise, very simple, something that mom or the niece or nephew could understand. I'll reiterate. The actions, this is the meat, ladies and gentlemen, of it. You want to talk through the actions that you took to complete the task, the direction that you gave other members of the team in delegating, whether that was delegating down, whether that was leveraging up, whether that was working with peers. And those are all really good things to share, because you want to demonstrate yourself. This goes back to Jamie's point of, you don't want to walk in and tell them that you're a good teammate. You want to demonstrate it to them and let them come up with it themselves. And when I say them, I mean the interviewers, by the way that you respond and describe these situations. You don't want to, because they don't know you. They know you from a piece of paper, your resume. So it's hard to sit back and believe the things that you're saying, because, heck, at the end of the day, they really don't know you. But if you're telling them the story and you're allowing them to understand, wow, Jamie really is a hard worker, because she just explained to me that she was in a full-time MBA program. She worked a 40-hour work week, and at the same time, she launched a business, all in this 2-year time frame. Yeah, Jamie's a hard worker, because how do you get that done without being a hard worker? So you're telling them that you're a hard worker without tooting your own horn, if you will. when we get into actions, this is the as I said, the meat, but we don't want to get too in depth. Literally, we want to have maybe 3 to 4 major points. You want to lay out the strategy of how you did the planning to accomplish the task. You want to talk about how the team was leveraged in responsibilities. You want to talk about the actions and how you worked with people at different levels within the organization or organizations to drive the task. You want to talk. You want to demonstrate initiative, intelligence, dedication, leadership, understanding. But lastly, the most important, in my humble opinion, is the R, the result, and this is what you close with. You summarize that all of those actions that you took were successful by stating that you accomplished the T, the task, or the target, and you lay that out quantifiably. If the idea, I'll use the example I just talked about, was on a limited budget launching a professional development series, you want to end by talking about the initial class of 17 students resulted in 11 of those 17 receiving job offers before their graduation date, thus alluding to the success of the program. And the program was launched at 90% of budget. So at the end of the day, you're demonstrating you had an effective program and you did it within the parameters and guidelines that you were tasked. And when you think about this STAR method, you marry this with an understanding of the types of questions that you're asked. So you walk into interviews understanding, okay, you can ask me 1,000 interview questions, but they're really only centered around these certain topics. And guess what? In my mind, almost like it's a script, I know and understand my STAR methods for each of these types of questions. I strongly encourage each of you to have 2 STAR method scenarios for each of the question types that we'll talk about here shortly, because you may misfire. And when I say misfire, I mean this. You want to learn and develop the skill of, when a question is asked, you can decipher, is that a teamwork question? Is that a leadership question? Is that a time when I failed or forward thinking question? Is that an accomplishments question? And every now and then you may misfire, and you don't want to use the same example in an interview setting. Now, you can use the same example in the second round as you did in the first round, but what you don't want to do is in the same specific interview use the same background. So if you had 2 for each, if you run into that scenario, you're much more than likely to kind of have that plan B if you misfire. Now, does that make sense to everyone? I know there was a lot that I said there. Okay, I will take silence as affirmation. The question types, again, I talk 5 to 7 types of questions. Again, there's a teamwork oriented question. There are going to be questions around problem solving. There's going to be questions around your leadership, your initiative. There's going to be questions around your interpersonal skills. There are going to be questions around challenge, stress, pressure. Those boxes are the ones that you want to think through and come up with 2 STAR method examples for each of them before you go into your next interview. And these are stories, again, you know yourself better than anybody, that lay out your most proud accomplishments, that lay out examples that you lived. And these are stories that have strong results that show how you've added value in the past. So, the key to an effective response to this question is to have the success stories. And again, all of these are truthful. All of these you can back up and document if necessary. But you want to be able to articulate um, these um, star method scenarios almost in your sleep, almost as if it's in a script scenario, as I said. And the reason for that is you want to be spending your time interviewing the interviewer. You want to figure out and you want to be paying attention to their body language as you're asking certain questions. Is this someone trustworthy? Is this someone that you would want to work for? You want to be able to really understand, and it's hard to answer all of those questions and to be that person, thinking through all these responses and answers, but still be proactive in interviewing the interviewer. So the more comfortable you are and the more that you're familiar with these stories, the better that you'll be and more comfortable in the interview setting. And again, it comes across and shows your confidence level, which is important, extremely important as well. We'll talk about 30, 60, 90-day plans later, but I definitely want to make sure everyone is familiar with this STAR method example. And this is exactly what I've done in the past. If you take a look in the far left, you'll see situation, target, action, result. So this is one example. Let's see. So develop and execute sales strategy for new large accounts. Now, this may very well be along the top where you might want to put, accomplishments, where you might want to list leadership, where you might want to list teamwork. And again, you go through and lay out each of these examples. And if you pay attention, this is exactly what I talked about. 1 to 2 bullets for the situation, 1 to 2 bullets for target. There's 4 bullets here for action, 1 to 2 bullet for results. And this is all in an Excel spreadsheet. So again, keeps you concise. And as you're about to walk in, as you're preparing the evening before, as you're practicing in front of the mirror for the interviews, here are your bullets. Here's your script. Here's what you want to say. You know this like the back of your hand again. So when you're in the interview, you're able to pay attention to, that's a great picture that you have there, by the Eiffel Tower of you and your family. I've always wanted to go to Paris. How did you enjoy your trip? I mean, different things like that you'll be able to pay attention to because you won't need to be as focused on going through and wondering about what are they going to ask me next? What are they going to do? And so again, we'll talk more about 30, 60, 90-day plans at a later date. We're obviously over our time here. The other thing that we definitely want to spend time on is extremely important is asking questions. You certainly want to have questions for the interviews and interview panelists. I talked earlier about having one sort of specific based on the individuals and their backgrounds and asking them something that they would probably specifically be familiar with based on their role and title. The types of questions you want to ask, broad stroke, it's perfectly fine if they haven't volunteered it already. When the tables get turned over onto you, ask the interviewer's background. You want to understand what were the roles that they took and how did they end up in that management position. Good managers would want somebody who wants their job. If you're working for someone that doesn't want to develop you and doesn't want to see you grow through the organization, that should raise a red flag. So understanding the interviewer's background helps you understand how is that company made up. Is that a company and organization that does move individuals to greater responsibility? And if not, is that the right place for you? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. Other questions, you want to understand, how did the position come open? Is it a newly created position? If it's a newly created position, you want to make sure that there's clear expectations and measures. You want to understand, the industry knowledge and trends as you're coming in, and you want to ask a question around that. If you are interviewing, for example, for a retailer right now, or specifically, let's say, a grocery retailer, you would be really smart to ask about Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods, and has that caused a strategy shift or what's happening within their organization? And there's already buzz and talk about, is Walmart going to try to buy, Costco, or what have you, or different scenarios like that. Excuse me, Microsoft. Potentially partnering, because this tech world is converging in. But by asking that question, you create robust discussion, and you show that you're a student of the industry. So again, it may be a totally different industry that we're talking about, but how does that fit in and work? You may certainly want to ask, and it's a very fair question to ask hiring managers, what's their management style? Are they a hands-on manager, hovering over? Do they give you autonomy and, lay out the strategy and say, go have at it? And either way, it doesn't make them a good or a bad manager. That's more of a question about you. You should know about yourself. Do you appreciate more of the autonomy, or do you want the manager that, is there strategizing with you, and you all are in the trenches together? And that's actually kind of a mid-road thing versus the micromanager. You certainly want to ask each individual for business cards. And if they don't have them, which is the new nuance, at least asking for an email address. Why? Because you want to make sure that you can get a thank you over to them, ideally the day of your interview, or no more than 24 hours later. You certainly also want to ask at the interview, and this should be your second to last question, what are the next steps? You want to know, are there going to be another 2 interviews or another 3 interviews? You want to know roughly what's the timing that's going to happen. You don't want to call them the next day and the day after that and the day after that and the day after that if they're already up front and saying it's going to be about another week as we finish conducting these first round interviews. You'll hear from us on such and such a day. It's also customary, if you have not heard, certainly to give them 2 weeks, and then follow back up. Also, don't be afraid to ask for the position, or what I like to call closing the interview. Now, this is essential if we're talking about a sales position. And I think it helps separate you from the rest of the pack in any other interview. And there's actually a full slide on this that I'll go into. So the close is essentially just that. It's asking for the job. And what you want to ask, and this should be as forward as you want to be, and as comfortable as you are in asking these questions, but is there anything that's preventing me from being the ideal candidate for this position? Now that is very important, because there may be nuances or skills that the interview panel and committee finds essential that they may not see in your background. So you want to get all of the objections out in front now, before you leave the room, before you hang up the phone. No one's going to be able to defend you better than you. And there may be something that's essential and germane to this position that maybe you didn't talk about during that interview, or maybe that isn't on your resume. They may say, we really want someone who understands project management. And maybe you took one of your electives as a project in project management, but you didn't realize how important that was. So it wasn't on your resume. It wasn't something that you talked about. And if they say, we like your general background, but we're really looking for someone that has a experience here, this gives you the opportunity to overcome that objection and to lay out and share with what parts of your background have helped you get to this specific point, and show them how you can add value in that area and how you have been successful in that area. So this is extremely important, and a nuance that I hope is clear to everyone, because I've known several individuals who at this juncture were able to bring out things in their background to help them gain the position, get the offer, and further clarify, again, the value they bring to the organization. We talked through thank you letters. You certainly always want to send them email, and or handwritten. If you are interviewing with a panel, You certainly want to make sure that you send separate emails to each of them, and you want to, customize it where it's appropriate and possible. Um, Again, at the next steps, we talked about getting the business cards, thank you letter, Q&A, and we talked about the follow-up timing and deadlines. So with that stated, I appreciate everyone who was able to stay on. I'll stay here if there are any questions.
I wanted to ask a question about you mentioning, go ahead and ask them what is preventing me from being the ideal candidate. But
Well, go ahead.
before then, you mentioned that you want to find out if this is the last step or if there's going to be more screenings after this.
Yep.
So basically, I'm just trying to understand if they say, okay, well, I didn't see this in you, or you don't have this. And the other thing is, if they come back with something that you really don't have background in, let's just say they say, oh, I need you to be somebody who's more plugged into manufacturing, like I don't know what the word is, but line production. And I'm
Okay.
like, well, I don't know much about it. So that itself, you're putting a negative in them that they didn't have before. How can you defend something
No.
that you didn't have?
Well. Here's the scenario. If they if they want it, I'll use your example. Understanding of the land management, and you don't have that, you just gain value because now you understand how important that is to your career. So you want to make sure you take a class in it. You want to make sure you do a volunteer project or something in it. You want to get that knowledge and understanding and move forward. And you still want to stay in touch with those individuals because guess what? That role and opportunity may come open again in a short period of time. And you want to make sure that you understand all of the potential nuances of what you don't have to where you're better prepared for it for the next scenario. I mean, if you don't have it, you don't have it. But you're not putting a light, Bharat, on a 800-pound gorilla in the middle of the room. They already know that. And as I stated earlier, more than likely, by the time you get to second round, and you should ask this at each interview, by the way. You should ask it phone screen. You should ask it at all the times because really what this is about is sifting out the objections that someone may have and being able to lay out, I can still do this and I can still add value to your organization. Does that clarify?
Yeah, it's just new, the fact that before you walk out, to be like, what's preventing. Usually, they come up with a reason in a week or 2 days or how long they take.
No, more than likely they know before you walk out. I mean, now, granted, they'll debrief. Don't get me wrong. I mean, even if it's a one-on-one, the hiring manager will debrief with HR and likely, their manager on, okay, I'm going to select this person and this is why. But you want them to tell you. Now, I'll be honest, and 90% of the time, what they'll say when you ask this question is, "Oh no, your background seems strong. We like you, and there's some other candidates that we're gonna talk to. We'll be in touch in a week or two." But you've at least given yourself the opportunity to understand, are there objections?
Okay.
And if there are objections, you want to either know what they are so you can be prepared for them for future interviews, or if there is something, again, that maybe they didn't clearly understand as to what you did, or it's something that you didn't understand was so important that you can highlight, you've been able to do that and drive that point home.
And follow-up question is, in this whole module, nothing came across referring to pay, benefits, or
Yep.
privileges that you get.
So we'll address that in the job offer negotiation aspect. I mean, this interview portion was purely about Now once I've gotten the interview, how do I get myself ready and prepared for it, and how do I get myself comfortable and confident while I'm in it to continue my strong trajectory of being the top or a top candidate. And this is about how do I secure the offer. And it's a whole nother session around once you get the offer, how to make sure you're prepared and you understand the salary ranges and how to negotiate, the vacation time, the benefits, the salary, and other perks. Any other questions? Well, thanks again, class, for sticking with us or with me for an extra few moments. I look forward to our next session on Friday. We'll be back together at noon, and if there are other questions, let me know. I will make sure that we get this session, the recorded session, out to everyone. But thanks for your time. Have a wonderful evening.